And joining us now on the program is Senator Angela Hill. She represents District 40, which includes, what counties does that include?
Marion and Pearl River.
Okay, gotcha. She serves as the chair of County Affairs Committee and vice chair of Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency. Thanks for coming in, Senator. Always good to see you.
Glad to be here.
All right, so let's start with this postpartum Medicaid extension bill. This came as a bit of a surprise when the governor announced that he would support this measure over the weekend. And then, of course, this bill passed the Senate already before he made that announcement, got transmitted to the House, and it is passed out of committee in the House, and that's where it stands right now. I wouldn't exactly say that the Speaker of the House robustly supports this legislation, but he did indicate that he would allow it to be referred to a committee, and really hasn't been committal as to whether or not he would put it on the floor for a full vote at this point. Don't know on the calendar. So that's where it stands right now. Your thoughts about that one?
Well, I didn't vote for the bill when it came before the Senate because I don't think Medicaid expansion is the answer. First of all, we don't have enough doctors in this state to treat all the people that we have. It takes months for people to get an appointment to even get in to see a doctor.
Right.
And, you know, when I was on Gallo, I talked about the fact that in years past, the health department used to take care of pregnant women. And then when Obamacare came around, the health department's mission was changed and they shifted all this to primary care. And basically, I think that was just so that more private providers could get more of a piece of the pie through Medicaid, but yet we don't have enough private providers to take care of pregnant women and babies in a timely manner. There's areas of the state that hardly have any doctors, and you know that, and a lot of that's where the mortality rates are high.
Right.
And so what I would like to see done is I would like to see these health departments get back on par to serve the folks, low-income people, like they used to. There's federal money for that too. And our health departments, we already have a building in every county. Some of these buildings are substandard, yes, and these counties need to get on the ball and get these buildings up to par. Look, I would rather even see a grant program to help get these health department buildings in shape rather than Medicaid expansion. I'd rather see some capital improvements to help the counties because, look, the counties don't get any sales tax. The cities have been getting sales tax, forever, 18.5%. The counties have to rely on property tax, ad valorem. So if you're a property owner, that's where all the revenue comes from in the county to run the entire counties, and that includes supporting the health department, the colleges, or whatever else, fire departments, whatever else the county supports. So I don't have a problem giving the county some of the money for capital projects that I feel like they rightly deserve anyway because they're getting robbed of sales tax. Some of the counties are the fastest growing areas rather than the cities. You got flight out of the cities. My county has grown at a hugely faster rate than my cities have grown. So that's what I would like to see. Look, the health department was doing telemedicine over the old rotary dial phones and hooking up women to these contraction belts that had premature labor, and they were transmitting this stuff over the phone lines years and years ago. Telemedicine, before people knew what telemedicine was in Mississippi, the health department was using it to treat pregnant women and high-risk pregnancies, preterm labor. My sister-in-law retired from the health department. They had good doctors. They had nurses. The doctors would rotate and go to different health departments, at different times. So that was a system that actually worked. And I don't see how expansion of this Medicaid and primary care is going to help because if you look at the mortality rates for the last year that I got statistics through the peer committee, 12 of the 15 maternal mortality rates 60 days postpartum were already on Medicaid.
Right, because the coverage, the Traditional coverage, the conventional coverage is 60 days. Of course, the last 3 years it's been continuous.
They were on it the whole year, so they were still on Medicaid.
Well, no, for 3 years.
Since the pandemic.
That's right.
During
the pandemic, once they're enrolled, they're on it until the public health emergency ends, which is coming up in a month.
So these maternal fatalities had full Medicaid coverage, 12 out of 15.
Right, but what about illnesses other than just
they still have
fatalities?
They still have Medicaid.
Well, they do now, but if the 60-day, if we start with the 60 days, they wouldn't have it.
There's been a lot of talk about postpartum depression and mental health care. We, through the Department of Mental Health, we have community-based mental health services. Low-income people can go through this. I've actually had friends who found themselves in a bad way that actually had to go through these community-based mental health centers. So I know that they are accessible.
Okay.
And everybody has access to them that's low income or doesn't have insurance. They actually have prescription programs. They have a pharmacy assistance center where you can get your pharmacy prescriptions at a rock bottom price, because I've picked up those medicines for people who didn't have coverage and got those through the community-based mental health centers and the group homes and the grants and things that are out there for pharmacy assistance. So there is help out there. The problem is there's no really integrated system for coordinating to the mothers where all that care is so that they can get connected to all the assistance that's already out there. And I think that's a huge problem, is just lack of knowing where to go to get it. And so I think that people, when they go in the hospital or when they go see a doctor, they need to be provided with those wraparound services that they can get. And I think that's been a huge problem, is that they just don't know where to look to get it.
Well, based on that, then, Senator, would it make sense for Mississippi just to amend its Medicaid program to no longer cover pregnant women? That's one of the coverage groups, and just transfer that care to the Department of Health and let the state fund all of it?
Well, they're still going to have hospital coverage for delivery, but I think pretty much everything other than hospital or emergency coverage could be done. Most of it could be done through the health departments, because the health departments would be basically acting like a clinic, like they did before.
Given the shortage of medical personnel, though, where would the health department get these people, these professionals?
Well, the private sector has the same problem right now.
Right.
But I think,
so the health department would be in competition with the private sector. Would the state be willing to pay them wages?
We've already got this program in place for nurse grants, and I think with the rural physician program that we have, a lot of that could be tailored to try to help these health departments. There's a lot of innovative ways that you could work. You could put these rural physicians that are doing OBGYN, you could put some of these in the health departments, and you could pay them a decent salary. There's ways to work this thing if you think out of the box and innovatively, that the state already really has the bones in place of a structure to do this. We've just got to think about what we already do and how we can modify that to fill the positions in our health departments if we wanted to go in that direction.
Okay. Has anybody prepared any sort of financial pro formas that would show what that would cost? Because this sounds to me like this would be a significant increase in cost of operating the health department to add these services.
It would, but like I said, it's going to be a significant cost for Medicaid expansion too.
Right, but the federal government pays a good bit of that. In this case, it wouldn't pay any of it.
The federal government also gives grants to the health department for lots and lots of things.
Okay.
Sometimes it's matching, sometimes it's not. So Mississippi was a whole lot poorer back when we did this than we are right now. I can remember.
Did what exactly?
When the health department had these services.
Okay, I got
Mississippi was not in nearly as good a financial shape a lot of those years as they are right now, back when they provided those services at the health department. So it can be done. It's just priorities as to what leadership and whomever wants to do.
Okay.
I think that if you look at the statistics and the numbers, I don't see that Medicaid expansion is going to do what they claim it's going to do. Well,
of course, this isn't expansion per se. This is extension of an existing program.
It's still expansion.
Well, it's expansion of the time frame, but it's not expansion of a new coverage group. Same coverage group.
Same coverage group.
Yeah.
Same coverage group. But it's still moving money around. It's still, it's still doing things in a manner that, a long time ago, we could count on the private sector to help us rein in a lot of this expansion of government.
Right.
But through the years, the private sector has really like their profit margins going up from all the programs that we have for redistribution of wealth to whatever, whether it be phone companies, electric subsidies, you name it, SNAP programs, whatever it is, the private sector has profited greatly off of it.
We got a break right here. You can hang around with us. We got Senator Angela Hill in the Element Wealth Studios. Coming right back. We've got Senator Angela Hill on the program with us now. So besides this bill, and really wanted to focus on that first, Senator, because that's fairly recent. It's gotten a lot of attention with the governor and the speaker, of course, pivoting a bit on that. I think is a fair way and an accurate way to describe it. Some other high-profile bills that have been taken up, one in particular is what we have called the CCID bill, a bill that Representative Trey Lamar filed in the House, passed the House. It would expand the Capitol Complex Improvement District in the city of Jackson, allow the Capitol Police to have jurisdiction over that area, and then also establish a new judicial system where judges would be appointed. That has been transmitted to the Senate. It looks like it got a big-time hacksaw in the committee over there.
That must have went to Judd A. I'm not on Judd A.
So.
I'm on Judd B. But I read about some of the changes, and one of the changes was that the Capitol Police would have jurisdiction across the entire city limits, and that's something I 100% agree with.
Well, in working with the other law enforcement agencies through a memorandum of understanding.
Yes, because, if something happens in the Capitol complex and they need to pursue somebody outside the Capitol complex, or they need to investigate something that has to do with the Capitol complex that winds up having, something outside that they need to investigate, they need that authority.
Yeah.
They need to be able to do that 100% because, what will happen is crime's just going to keep moving a little farther and a little farther and a little farther out of the Capitol complex if they think we don't have jurisdiction to move in there. And so what we want to do is clean it all up.
Right. Yeah, the only concern I had with it, Senator, and get your take on this, is that it's my understanding that when an incident occurs and something's reported and law enforcement has to be dispatched, that it could be any of those law enforcement entities that could receive the dispatch and respond to the call. It could be the Capitol Police, Jackson Police, or I believe the Sheriff's Department, if I'm not mistaken, of Hinds County.
And as long as they have a communication system to where they can talk to one another, I think that's better rather than not having that potential, because how long it takes to respond to some of these things.
Right.
So I think most everybody has Ms. radios. Most people can communicate, and I think that's really all they need is a line of communication when responding to some type of 911 call, because our ultimate goal is to get somebody there in the shortest period of time.
Right. Agree. All right, what do you think we ought to do about PERS? I know that's been something that Senator Josh Harkins on Senate Finance has been interested in a lot. Mm-hmm. He covers that. PERS is like virtually every defined benefit program in this country is facing some financial headwinds. What should we do there?
Well, the people that are vested, I've told people that if you're retired or you're vested in the program, my goal is to not change your retirement plan. But for new people coming into the system, we have got to figure out some kind of way to try to balance this out, because the new feeds the old. So you got to have new people coming in to keep paying, and you eventually get upside down with more retirees than you have employees, because state government has shrunk some since I've been here. So that's your dilemma, is that you can get more or less upside down on payments, and you're relying on your invested portion. And when the stock market tanked after Biden came in, the invested portion of it dropped back down. So we're going to have to look at some kind of changes with new hires is what I think is a start. Because what happens is the cost of living adjustment that was put in the 90s, that compounds upon itself. And there was no mechanism put in there to actually fund that when that was put into place.
Right.
So they keep coming back to the legislature to bail PERS out. And eventually, there's not going to be any money to bail PERS out if we don't make some type of long-term systemic changes.
Yeah. And
I'm not a mathematician, but I can look at it and see that we can't keep the same defined benefit plan for new hires coming in and ever hope that this thing won't go bankrupt, because it eventually will.
Yeah, especially with folks living longer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that not only exacerbates the base PERS payment, but the compounding of the 13th check.
Exactly. And, I have a lot of relatives my sister just retired with 30 years of teaching. And I think our responsibility is to make sure that retirement plan is solvent.
Sure.
And anytime you talk about PERS, anybody that's on PERS, they get the stories all crossed up. And I mean, it's like the claws come out and, oh, don't you touch my retirement. But, a responsible thing to do is to make sure that retirement plan is solvent.
Right.
And so that's where we need to look to make sure. But I think the commitment that we made to those retirees, we need to keep it.
Yeah. So as you're well aware, but for the benefit of our audience, the PERS board can increase the employer contribution rate, but it requires the legislature to increase the employee contribution rate.
Right. And they are already the employer contribution rate hurts everybody when it's increased. It hurts cities.
Taxes.
It hurts cities. It hurts counties. It's going to eventually wind up as a tax increase is what it's going to wind up locally if that keeps happening. So we need to find a way to offset that, to keep that from continuing to go up.
Yeah. Okay, so another bill I want to ask you about, another health care related bill, that seems to be an area that's received a whole lot of focus during this particular session, is the grant program that would appropriate $80 million in the form of a grant to hospitals to help sort of defray some of their financial shortfalls. What do you think about that bill?
Well, I voted for it because most of those rural hospitals, a lot of them are county hospitals. And like we discussed before, counties have been robbed of a lot of money for a lot of years by not getting any of their sales tax back that they collect. And we know that there are lots and lots of businesses that are out in the counties that are putting a lot of sales tax, into the general fund. So I've adopted the idea that if I can't get a sales tax diversion back to the counties like they should have, I'm gonna try to help them every way I can financially. And if that's something that they want to try to support their rural hospitals, then I'm gonna vote for it.
Okay, so was there a change somewhere along the line? Was there a time when counties did participate, did receive a diversion of sales taxes? That's never been the case in Mississippi, has it?
Never that I could find.
Okay, so your point is we've got more sales activity occurring outside of city limits in the counties, but all that revenue from sales taxes is not going to any of the counties.
It's going to the DOR and to the state general fund.
Right, 18% diverted.
None of it's coming back to the counties. The cities get 18.5% back, but the counties get nothing.
So if a business is located and generating sales tax in the county in an area that is not incorporated as a municipality, 100% goes to the DOR, to the general fund.
100%.
Right. None of that gets diverted back.
None of it gets diverted back to the county. The only way the counties have to raise revenue is property taxes.
Right. Ad valorem taxes.
And that's a terrible tax.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody gripes about that one. I don't like that one either.
I don't either. And a consumer tax is a more fair tax.
Yeah.
And that's why the counties deserve their portion of that sales tax back.
Okay. So is this something you've proposed?
For probably 10 years now.
And what happens?
Never gets considered.
The municipalities argue against that, I'm sure.
Well, no,
it doesn't affect them.
No, the municipalities, as far as I know, have never got involved in it. But
it doesn't affect them.
It's just something. Now, they do get some of the internet tax back.
Okay.
But the cities get some of the internet tax back. But there was a bill that seemed to be maybe getting a little traction in the House. I think it was I can't remember if it's Tracy Arnold's bill. I know, but Jerry Representative Turner was working on it, and I had the numbers from DOR as to how much it would cost for the 18.5% diversion and a smaller diversion. And I shared those numbers with my friends on the House side, but I think that bill has probably died by now.
Okay.
Or I don't know what the status of it is, but we just have to keep talking about it because it's just not fair. And you know, I started filing this bill before I was ever the county affairs chair because I'm a property owner. And I hear it from my businesses, I hear it from my property owners that, you know, that the whole burden of running the county shouldn't be on the property owners. That it's only fair to have some of this sales tax sent back to the county. So that hospital grant program, yes, going back to the counties.
That's the way it's structured. You're absolutely right about that.
And most of them are in the counties.
Yeah. Before you go, the ballot initiative, the citizen ballot initiative, how did you vote on that one in the Senate?
I voted yes on the bill.
Okay. Even with a higher threshold?
Even with a higher threshold, I voted yes on the bill.
Okay.
But I think there's some things that absolutely need to be changed with the ballot initiative if it's brought back, because I think it's not very wise to put less than 20 words on a ballot and be able to add unlimited amounts of information into your Constitution.
Gotcha. Thanks for coming in, Senator Angela Hill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth Studios.